Hello. It's been a little bit since we last talked, and when we did last talk, I was migrating a software application I had worked on over the last couple of years from one platform to another. So I had switched an application from Microsoft WPF to Avalonia, and I found that to be a very fun and thrilling experience, and I was doing it with AI. And so that's part of what I want to talk about is what's going on with AI. And so if you're not aware, there has been a shift in the world of what we call AI, where Google Gemini has now surpassed or moved past um, OpenAI's ChatGPT. So Google Gemini now shows that it's in the lead in terms of momentum, and this somewhat matches what I have experienced, where people are saying that the quality of ChatGPT has declined significantly. Now, many people may not experience that. It depends on what you're doing with the AI. But the more that you get into the AI, the more you try to push it to do more advanced things and to give you deeper answers, more sophisticated, more complicated answers, or to deal with more complicated type of situations. If you have any expertise or real knowledge about that topic that you're talking to the AI about, then you will start to notice more errors with ChatGPT than you may have seen in the past. And so um, that wasn't so much my issue. My issue was more of the the precision aspect when it came to engineering. And I explained that a little bit more in the previous video. But we are seeing a shift among software developers who use AI where they are emphasizing Claude code. Now, ChatGPT, and I say ChatGPT when I really mean OpenAI. That's the company that um, that actually runs and hosts ChatGPT. So OpenAI has a tool called Codex, and Codex allows a software programmer to get more detailed with the AI. You get rid of the web browser. You don't use Chrome or Firefox or anything like that. You go into the command line and you start talking with the AI on the command line. And when you do it that way, it's much more effective. So we'll just say ChatGPT Codex, right, or OpenAI Codex is showing some real strengths there. So many of the problems that I ran into in that I talked about in the last video, many of them could have been avoided if I had used a different tool under the OpenAI set of tools. And so that's a case of, well, you're holding it wrong, as they say. And so it was a skill issue, and it's one that I'm aware of. But I still decided to go ahead and end what I was doing with OpenAI and ChatGPT. So I'm done with OpenAI. I'm done with ChatGPT. I don't use those. I don't use that anymore. So I use other things now. So I said, okay, if I use AI for software development in the future, in the near future, then I'm probably going to evaluate Claude Code. And that seems to be the way to do it. And that is what many of these software developers that are seeing real success with AI, where the issues are minimized, they are doing it with Claude Code primarily. Some are using Gemini, but the majority is using Claude Code. And so in terms of technical use of AI, the technical use of AI, not the AI where you write papers and you come up with strategy documents and that sort of thing. But for the technical use of AI, Claude Code seems to be the tool to use. It's the one with the best reputation, and the company Anthropic that's behind Claude Code appears to have a much better process and approach to the AI than OpenAI and ChatGPT. So that's my plan for the future, is to evaluate and adopt Claude Code. And so there is another Claude thing that has come out called Claude Cowork. And that's not something I'm going to evaluate, because that's part of the high tier plan. That's like $200 a month or something like that. And that's outside of my budget. But I hear good things about that. And so Claude Cowork is for non-technical users what Claude Code is for the technical users. So it gives you a lot more capability than what you would see even with ChatGPT. So it's going to allow you to transform Excel files and PowerPoint presentations, all these things. And I shouldn't say that it will, because it's already out. So if you're a Claude Max subscriber, then you will have access to Cowork. I suspect that eventually Anthropic is going to make Cowork available to more people, and that's the right type of product that they've developed there. I still think that long term, and I said this in 2022 or 2023, I have a video, I said this, it is my prediction, I said it then, that Google will win the AI race in the United States. At the time, I didn't say the United States, but today I would say in the United States, among the US AI companies, Google is going to be the front runner. And what I said then is what I will say now. They have the most data centers. You hear all that news about AI companies needing to buy data centers and get billions of dollars of investment for data centers. You don't ever hear about that with Google, right? You don't ever hear about that with Google, because Google already has data centers, right? So they already good to go. Their AI is faster because they have their own chips. So they've been doing AI training on their own Google chips years before NVIDIA took off, right? And the number one advantage that Google has besides the data centers is that Google has all of the data. So anytime you're going to see OpenAI, ChatGPT do anything significant with AI, or even Claude or Anthropic do anything significant with AI, they're pulling this data from Google for the most part, and some other search engines, but primarily Google. So if Google is the supplier of data to all the AI companies for the most part, then what does that mean? That means that Google also can control the data that the other AI companies get. So, they have to pay Google for some of that data, I would imagine. So Google is in the number one position in terms of infrastructure to really see AI skyrocket under their leadership. And they can do this casually. They can do this. They can take as much time as they want, because none of their competitors are in the same position that they're in. Having said that, though, there is a case to be made for what I call situation-specific AI. Now, in earlier times, they called that expert systems. It was a type of AI called expert systems. Those exist. They exist in the military. They exist in certain industrial applications. But an expert system style AI is one that has its training locked in on what it's supposed to do. So if it's a warehouse AI, then it's been trained on warehouse AI. It don't know anything about pop culture. It don't know anything about physics. It don't know anything about cooking recipes. That AI, all it knows is warehouse, or warehouse AI. That's called an expert system. So that's what Claude Code is for the most part. It's a expert system to an extent on software development and technical process, right? But it has the broader capabilities to understand pop culture, cooking recipes, and physics, right? And all the things that you can just casually chat with AI about. But Anthropic went down the road of saying there's this one area where if we optimize it, we can get the most gain from it. And they're right. Because when you think about computers, you think about data, the most effective way to deal with it is through code. And so that's what they're doing. So that's what I realized with the AI. And my experiences with OpenAI and ChatGPT, it's not a waste. The things that I learned from all of the challenges and breakthroughs that I had with the use of OpenAI tools, those skills will transfer. Those perspectives transfer over to Claude when I use it a lot more. But in the meantime, I'm doing a little bit of reading here, right? So let me get that glare out of there. So I'm doing a little bit of reading. So I'm just going through some of these. So I've read some other books beside these, but this is what I'm reading right now. So I want to make sure that as I move forward, that I recharge and reactivate at a deeper level, at a much more acute level of acumen, my software development acumen. I want to build up my software development acumen so I can write code and I can build programs, but I want to make my awareness of all the options more comprehensive. So that means that even though I have 24 years of use of Microsoft.net, there are things in Microsoft.net I have avoided using because I didn't prefer using those things. But now that those things have matured, and I can't say specifically what those things are because there's many of them, right? But I have done a deep dive so that I can have a comprehensive awareness of all the things in .NET that I pushed aside, that have now matured and will represent much smoother code, much cleaner code, better expressed code. So as Steve Covey said in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I'm sharpening the saw, right? And so I've been in that in earnest. So I've read here recently, I've read about 2,000 pages of information regarding C# and .NET. And in the past year, I've read approximately 2,000 pages in addition to that. So 4,000 pages of information in the last 12 months. So yeah, it's quite a ride right now, and that's that. So now let's look at what we have with I won't say the word, but what people are saying about Microsoft and AI. There's a term that's out there right now, and I asked AI about that, and it turns out that the term micro slop is not a new term. I thought it was a new term. Apparently, people were using that term in the 90s. So I had no idea. And I've been using Microsoft technology since the early 1990s. And so my first computer experience is Microsoft DOS and GW Basic in the late 80s, early 90s. I know there's some people out there would say, oh, I'm sorry. But, the thing of it is like I said a couple of videos ago, I may not be a fan. I may not be one of the the ones that cheer on the Windows operating system, right? I prefer and I'm an advocate for Linux, even with all of its flaws and all the drama that exists in the Linux community right now. Um, at its core, it's a better engineered operating system. And so that's what called to me. And then the rest of it, the open source philosophy, all of that, I was down with, as time went on. So, but what I'm saying is that I like Microsoft .NET, the programming environment, and I asked the AI about it. I was like, hey, how can we have in the same company the operating system is not that good, but the programming tools are great? And it was a great answer that I got. So apparently, and I didn't know this, but somewhere around 2014 or somewhere in that ballpark, Microsoft got rid of their quality assurance department. I don't know if that's true. Allegedly, they got rid of their quality assurance department to a significant level when it came to the Microsoft Windows operating system. I'm sure there's still testing going, but the testing was now, they put the onus of that on the software programmer, right? And I can understand that when I build my own programs or when you're building programs for a business, right? You might, be the one that does the testing as a software developer. But for a bigger software company, technology company, or a larger organization, you usually have your own quality assurance department. And I had that experience with internet startups early in my career. I was the lead software developer for this internet startup, and we had a QA team, and that QA team saved our bacon many a time because software developers, we're focused on building the features and getting the code out and trying to get things shipped. And sometimes it's useful to have a second set of eyes to make sure that something didn't slip through the cracks in terms of the reliability and the quality of what we're trying to present to customers, especially when it's what you might call commercial software development, which is what I was involved in at the beginning of my career. And then I switched more to in-house corporate software. And so it was a surprise to me. And so I was like, okay, that explains a lot of things. And then when you add in AI with that, with the uncertainty with AI or the uncertain nature of how AI works, because it's very statistical. Statistics by its nature is not deterministic. It's not clear cut. I mean, is it 20%? Is it 80%? Your percentages change. They shift moment to moment, right? That's how percentages work on certain things. And so, whereas code, real code, it's very clear cut. If this, then this, right? If we have this problem, error out. Let's error. Let's crash this thing and let's bail, right? So software code that is not statistically driven is very deterministic. It's very clear cut, and you can validate that. You can measure it. You can go in there and say, yeah, this is definitely wrong, and you can look at it and you can say, oh yeah, that's definitely going to cause a problem. So we have lost that to the extent that we rely on totally AI-driven solutions, right? Okay. Now, why is .NET in the clear, right? Because I use .NET. I like C#. It's my programming language since 2001. I love C#. And I really like .NET. I was one of the first adoptees of .NET. That's my thing. So why is .NET great but Windows isn't? Well, here's a good answer to that. .NET Framework 4.8.1, as far as I understand, is the latest version of .NET Framework for Windows, right? And the Microsoft team has more or less frozen that one, right? So it's solid. and it doesn't have a lot of churn with that version of .NET for Windows. And there are many companies that still use .NET Framework. So that's where the majority of my .NET expertise was until the last couple of years, when I switched over to what's called the descendant of .NET Core, right? Because in 2015, you have this thing called .NET Core, which was a reboot from Microsoft to create a version of .NET that could run on Linux, so that they could use all that nice Linux goodness for cloud. And then they rebranded that again at some point, and they just now call that .NET. And I spell it D-O-T-N-E-T. The new .NET, I spell it D-O-T-N-E-T, whereas the old .NET is the period and then capital N-E-T, right? So when I talk to AI and I'm talking about the old .NET, I will do period, capital N-E-T, and when I'm doing the new .NET, or the one that is really the one that is maintained, that is the most active one now, I spell D-O-T-N-E-T, right? So, and there's a good reason for that, because the actual command on the command line for .NET is spelled D-O-T-N-E-T. So that's why I call it D-O-T-N-E-T, because that's the command .NET. All right, so that is slightly confusing unless you're a programmer. But the thing of it is, the AI then continued to say that because .NET is open source, and because it's developed out in the open, and because there are more people involved in it, and because there's a more rigorous process involved in it, and there are true automated tests, continuous integration, continuous development, pipelines and processes involved with that, also in coordination with its affiliation with GitHub, or just, all of that, then it has a higher quality level baked into it. So that made sense to me. It made sense in my mind, right? So .NET is for software developers by software developers, right? And so the software developers have a vested interest in making their own tools high quality. Hence, .NET has quality. Also, .NET, the tool set, is free. So there's no marketing division at Microsoft. There's no business people driving the direction of .NET itself. So the engineers at Microsoft have more direction over .NET than they do over Windows and Microsoft Office. So Windows, that's driven by, marketing and business. We got to sell Windows, and we got to do this, and we got to do that, and we need to cut costs, and blah, 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 blah. And so, that made it subject to many of the same issues you might see in software development inside a company, where you're trying to rush products out, you're trying to appeal to a certain marketing theme, and certain things may go out the door prematurely, and you end up with all of these issues. Linux doesn't have any of those issues, right? There's no marketing for Linux. It just is what it is, right? And it's engineers that run Linux. And so, and it's the engineers that run .NET. So it all just works together. So that's the thing there. Now, final thing I want to talk about is where this market is going. Let's talk about business. So, business-wise, we are going to see in a little while that companies, well, we're already seeing it, but it's going to be very clear-cut that companies are not seeing the return on investment, because I spent a lot of time in the business world. So that's, I actually deal with, business and, finance and all that kind of stuff, right? Or financial matters. And so in that world, it's about return on investment. It's about results. Hey, let's just get more clear cut on that. In the business world, the number one thing is results on the business side, not on the technical side, but on the business side. It's about the end result, the outcome, even more than the process, even more than the philosophy. Where's the money? Where's the profit? Where's the growth? Where's the advancement? And AI is not showing any of that. So you got AI companies that are not profitable. Well, okay, maybe we'll just say ChatGPT is not profitable, because Google is certainly a profitable company, and you really can't make the case that they are losing money on their AI. It's just part of their infrastructure. So they can continue to just turn up the heat on what they offer in terms of their AI and push OpenAI, ChatGPT, out the market into insolvency, right? They could do that. Anthropic, I guess they're profitable. They are much more focused on what they're doing. They're not trying to do everything. And so I guess they got their, I haven't looked into their business as much as I've looked into OpenAI and Google and Microsoft. But I get the sense that Anthropic, the company behind Claude, they have everything under control there. So then, what we're going to see is a real correction. Computer component prices are very, very expensive right now, right? That's all going to come back to the way it was, because these manufacturers are going to have all this inventory on hand. They gotta unload it. So they're going to sell all those SSDs and that RAM. They're going to sell it at a low price. There is not a killer, what they call a killer app for AI in general. Claude is doing some great things, but Claude has trust, whereas you can't say that OpenAI has that trust, right? Google has trust depending on if you trust all of your Gmail and all that good stuff, right? But it takes a lot to convince a lot of people now to put AI on their computer as opposed to going on the web to talk to AI, right? And so Microsoft's struggling with that, with Recall and Copilot. People are looking at all the issues with Copilot. There's lots of discussion about Copilot issues right now. So let me go back. Where is the money from the AI? They don't have any money, and they spent so much. There is no plan, and there is no ideas on the horizon where you can see from a traditional business standpoint. What the business perspective is called certainty. How certain are you that you're from this starting point, you're going to go from A to Z, and once you reach point Z, you now have a positive financial outcome. Don't see it, right? So that's all I got to say on this right now. But if you have any comments, let me know, and I will see you later.